The Ras Shamra Discovery by Wayne Jackson, M.A. In the spring of 1908, Barn, a Syrian farmer, was plowing his field when his plow struck a stab of a stone. Initially assumed to be a flagstone, he noticed it had square corners. Upon extracting it from the soil, Barman discovered a huge underground vault containing vases, jugs, tablets, gold, and silver pieces of ivory. When the Syrian peasants began to dispose of these artifacts, words reached the local police, who notified the French authorities in Beirut. Charles Verlaine, an expert in cuneiform, was sent to explore the site, but the initial investigations proved relatively fruitless. After studying the map of the vault, another French archaeologist noted that it was the Crete of ancient Crete. Assuming that important ruins might be persuaded that academic Belial's betrayed letters and expedition accordingly. In the spring of 1909, a French archaeological expedition led by F.A. Schaeffer of Strasbourg Museum and his associate George Tennant began a systematic evaluation of the Ras Shamra. The work continued for a few months each year from 1929 to the outbreak of World War II. It was resumed in 1950. The only small part of the ones have been investigated. It is ranked as of the 20th century. Cyrus Gordon wrote that Ugaritic is the greatest literary discovery from antiquity since the decipherment of the Egyptian hieroglyphs and the Mesopotamian cuneiform, which is generally recognized. Ras Shamra, or funnel head, is a 65-foot mound located near Menat el Bedia, the White Harbor, in northern Syria. It is some 7 miles north of Laodicea, at Amir, and approximately 8 miles at the point of Cyprus. Ras Shamra is known today and was identified as an ancient Phoenician city as Ugarit. Diggings, Professor Schaeffer was able to distinguish 5 levels of occupation of Ugarit, which he classified 1 through 5 downward. At level 5, when reached bedrock, earth was found along with flint and bone implements. This is the pre-pottery culture, although these people were later joined by farmers who used both stone and pottery vessels. Level 4 contained finely made attractive painting of Ware. At level 3, in the later half of the 3rd millennium BC, the site was occupied by those who used the so-called Khirbet Ware. This level was devastated by fire. Level 2 reveals that Europe expanded into a rich commercial center with economic exchanges with the 12th Egyptian Dynasty. Most of Schaeffer's work was performed at level 1, dating from 1600 to 1200 BC, which contained fortifications, temples, and in particular, the palace that contained the numerous cuneiform documents. When the French expedition commenced in its diggings in 1928, scarcely a month had gone by, and most important discoveries of the centuries were made. They were uncovering a scribal school, a library, and an adjoining temple. Most of these temples and libraries were written in a strange new script, but they soon deciphered by Semitic scholars, one of whom had been decorated by the French government for the brilliant work on enemy cipher in the First World War. This new strange script was soon discovered to be Ugaritic. D.J. Wiseman, a professor of Assyrianology at the University of London, explains. The Ugaritic alphabet is a unique combination of wedges to form 20 numbers written like Akkadian, left to right. It must have been a local invention, in particular added at the end of the alphabet, which obviously followed the same order as Hebrew. The 2 inscriptions found in Palestine on a tablet at Beth Shemesh on a bronze knife near Tabor may show that this form of writing was widely used. Within the 8 months of publication, the first 50 tablets by Sierra in 1930 had been deciphered the alphabet with the help of H. Bauer and E. DeHolm. Though discussion continues of the relation of the Northwest Semitic dialect to Canaanite and Hebrew, the importance of 350 or more Ugaritic texts for the biblical studies was quickly recognized. Few aspects of Old Testament studies are affected by these discoveries, which give promise for further literary finds in Palestine. When Professor Wiseman suggested that a few areas of Old Testament studies are unaffected by the discovery of Ras Shamra, he did not overstate the case. The Ugaritic document has been multiple benefactor to the serious Bible student. The balance of this paper would deal with the several aspects. The religion of the Ugaritic was similar in ways to the Canaanite system of the gods and prophets consistently denounced. The chief god of El was believed to be the father of 70 gods and goddesses that comprised the Ugaritic pantheon. El was a shadowy figure who apparently takes little part in the affairs of man. El's wife, the mother of the pantheon of gods and goddesses, Arthret or Elat, her name appears in the form of Asherah in the Old Testament, rendered in the Groves in the King James Version of the Book of Judges, chapter 3, verse 7. Of El's sons and daughters, Baal was the most popular. He was the storm god that brought rain and fertility and who was frequently in conflict with Moth, the god of death. El has appeared to be a sensitive sort of character who at times with the mild character of good humor, never refusing what was asked of him. Yet at other times he might kill his father or his son or cut off the head of his daughter. Baal was the offspring of El and Asherah. Ugaritic texts indicate that eventually Baal drove El from the leading place and took his position and his wife. Significantly, the Bible represents Baal and Asherah as counterparts. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 19. Accordingly, the Asmoran, or the plural of Asherah of the Bible, were the female cults objected corresponding to the male objects of the Baal cult. Although there were some similarities in sacrifice offered in the Canaanite system, both in the names and the kind of animals offered to that of the Israelites, the former was highly polytheistic, extremely sensuous, and not infrequently violent, Thomas observed. In the temples of the Canaanites, there were male and female prostitutes, sacred men and women. All sorts of sexual excess was practiced. It was believed in some way that these rituals caused the crops and the herbs to prosper. Also, from the numerous and biblical and Roman allusions, we also know that child sacrifice was occasionally practiced. The story of the Moabite king Mesha in 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 27 immediately comes to mind. Funerary jars have been found with bodies of young children distorted by suffocation as they struggle for life after being buried alive for the sacrifice of the Canaanite gods. Although there are some vague similarities between the Israelitish and the Canaanite religion, the differences were far greater. In an excellent article that appeared in the Biblical Archaeologist, Ernest G. Wright called to attention some of these. First, Israel's official religion was strictly monotheistic. Israel, for example, did not pacify elements of nature, rather all things were created by Jehovah. Second, Yahweh of Israel is not shrouded in mythology. He does not war, love, and etc. with all the other gods. He did not die, rise, etc. Third, Israel God was a God of history who moved among the people, and although anthropomorphic language is used for him to accolade their limited understanding, yet he was vastly superior to man. Fourth, the God of the Old Testament was alone. He had no female counterpart. In fact, biblical Hebrew has no word for goddess. Fifth, Israel made no images of Jehovah. Not a single example of a male figurine of Yahweh has been found in the ruins of Israel. Six, there is not a complete absence of morality in the gods of Canaan. Seven, the concept of God who entered into the covenant with his people is unique to Israel. In this view of corruption of the Canaanite religion, it is not difficult to understand why the Lord demanded their extermination by the Israelites upon the latter entrance into the Promised Land. Their cup of iniquity was indeed fuel. Prior to 1925, the student of Hebrew was primarily trained in classical Arabic. Though this is still important today, the student gets more of a basic training in the Northwest Semitic language, especially in Ugaritic. Because of the discovery at the Ras Shamra, the evolution of the Hebrew script can now be traced considerably accurate from about 1500 BC to modern times. Moreover, as Kelso noted, the Ugaritic text, for example, has given us new grammar, vocabulary, and syntax, which enable us to translate the passages easier once we were in an enigma. The Ugaritic text includes a variety of scripts: Simo-Akkadian Sibyllic form or cuneiform, the native Alphabetic cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Hittite hieroglyphics, and an Aegean Sea celebrity. Although largely and varying of the languages is represented: Sumerian, Akkadian, Hurarian, Hittite, Egyptian, and Ugaritic, and whatever languages turn out to be evolved from the Algerian similarity. All further to the scholars in great amazement, it was discovered the sequence of the Ugaritic alphabet is the same as modern Hebrew, revealing that the Hebrew alphabet goes back at least 3,500 years. Cypress Gordon, an expert in the field, comment, even the simplest school texts are extraordinary interests. They consist of letters of the alphabet in a traditional fixed order: A, B, G, H, D, H, W, Z, H, T, Y, K, L, M, Z. This embodies the same alphabetic tradition that comes down through us to Phoenician Hebrews, Greeks, and the Romans. To be sure, changes have occurred over a long chain of transmission, but a and a B and a H and a K and a L, M, P, Q, R, and a T to our English ABCs have appeared the same sequence as the Ugaritic alphabet. Not by accident, but for some clear historic reason, the Hebrew sequence agrees even more strikingly with the Ugaritic for the simple reason that they was used so closely to Semitic languages in the vicinity of Phoenicia. This alphabet is most important in the single useful invention of civilized man. The importance of above is twofold. First, these discoveries have fully refuted the argument of higher critics that lacked an importance of an alphabetic script in the second millennium BC, was proof enough that the practical stories could not have been written at the time. Second, these linguistic discoveries have been a great boon to Old Testament Egypt. The study of the Ras Shamra text has thrown a floodlight on numerous passages of the Old Testament scriptures. Many verses that formerly were unclear have been illustrated by these remarkable documents. 1. For years, scholars were puzzled by the Mosaic prohibition, thou shalt not boil a kid in his own mother milk, Exodus chapter 23, verse 19. Adam Clark felt that this is designed that the command was basically to prevent the blunting of morality, sensitivity, and developing a hardness of heart. It is now known, however, that the boiling of a kid in the milk to appease certain deities was a common Canaanite ritual. The Ugaritic text says over fire 7 times to sacrifice cook a kid in the milk. The Mosaic regulation, therefore, was to prevent any mini cry of heathenism. 2. In the book of Deuteronomy 23, 17, and 18, Moses declared, there should be no prostitutes of the daughter of Israel, neither should be a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Thou shalt not bring a hire of a harlot or the wages of a dog into the house of Jehovah thy God, for any vow, for both of these are an abomination unto Jehovah thy God. Again, Moses was attempting to inoculate the children of Israel against the immoral practice of paganism. From the Ras Shamra, it was discovered that sacred prostitution, both male and female, was exceedingly common and practiced in the name of religion at various centers of worship. Fertility as a goddess actually became a sacred prostitute, who, curiously enough, was called the Holy One. 3. The confrontation between Elijah and the 800 prophets of Baal and Asherah in 1 Kings 18 takes on a great meaning of life in the information of Ugarit. Elijah's challenge was clear. Let a sacrifice be prepared and laid on the altar. But these cultures were to call upon Baal to unite the offering, presuming that he should be an easy task for a stone god. A lime stela at Ugaritic shows that Baal, in his most characteristic role as a thunder god who mounts the clouds. He is pictured with a lightning bolt in hand. However, Baal cannot prevail. It was Elijah God who consumed the sacrifice. Moreover, when Elijah prayed over the rain and the dew ceased, 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 1, and such did for 3 years and 6 months. He literally cut off Baal's water, and for a god that was a deity of rain and fertility, this is fatal. 4. 2. It's possible that the frequent emphasis on the Old Testament of Jehovah as a living God may have been a prophetic reaction to the Canaanite belief in the redemption's dying and rising of Baal. 5. The study of the Language of Ugaritic documents written in the dialect of Canaanite has helped S.A. Lawrence team to correct a crucial miscalculation in a well-known verse in Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, namely the word and the adverb yet still, as it should read, for testimony. The lines there should therefore read, is a visionary is a testimony of an appointed time. This explains the reason for instructions in the preceding voice. Yahweh answered me with this version to write the version and make it plain upon the tablets. It proclaims God's will that prophecy should be recorded, and when it's fulfilled, the written record will prove the word of God has actualized itself in history. 6. The description of Moses, that his eye was not dim, nor was his nature force unabated, Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 7, was rather anemic for the years, since the word natural force is similar to the Hebrew word for jaw. Jerome, in his Latin Vulgate, assumed that this is a reference to the great prophet's teeth. In the Ras Shamra tablets, though, the word is twice used for mainly vigor. The point is, Moses' death was due to his former disobedience, not his physical degeneracy. Other examples of how Ugaritic literature assists the Old Testament interpretation can be found in chapter 8 of Charles Pfeiffer's book, The Ras Shamra and the Bible. The higher criticism has to do with the studies of the sources and times and authorship of ancient literary documents. Most of the higher critics, influenced by German rationalism, have been destructive in their approach to the Bible study. Their investigation have proceeded along the lines of the buttress with a set propositions. First, there's a denial of the miraculous, i.e. predictive prophecy. So the message contained a vivid prophecy assigned to dates contemporaries with events described and thus viewed merely as history. Second, it is assumed that the biblical narrative developed along revolutionary lines, hence the material that happens to appear as technical must be assigned to late dating, even if a variety of evidence argue a much earlier period. Third, based upon alleged literary strata or sources, critics through their contemporary literary studies had dissected a certain Old Testament document according to authors, times, and etc. Not infrequent, and based upon sheer lack of knowledge, critics have inclined to charge the Bible with error. The finds of the Ras Shamra, however, has rendered some moral blows to the theory of the destructive higher criticism. One, the Graf-Ronson theory, which divided the Pentateuch into the JPED sources, is well known. This school of criticism has attempted to dissect the 5 books of Moses on the various names of God, Jehovah, Elohim, etc. But it also claims to have multiple authorship that can be determined by a particular use of a word, expression, and a diction. For example, the critics base one of their argument on the use of the word 2 Hebrew pronouns, Anna, and the other one. Documentaries assign the EA and Anna to Hero G. Seekers as shown. However, there's a contextual considerations involving different emphasis to relate to the use of pronouns. Additionally, it can be observed that no documentary usage of the regarding language is alleged by the documentarians. It can be supported by a study of other languages. In fact, Ugaritic shows that the contrary and support the view of present herein. The Ugaritic Handbook shows that the both forms, the Ankh and the N, are present in Ugaritic and frequently enough in the same text. In fact, it is now recognized that Ugaritic stands quite close to Canaanite Hebrew, and is witnessed that the view presented by this writer is closer to the fact than the documentaries and is preferred. 2, Westerling also argued that some of the technical terms of sacrifice in the so-called P document obviously relate to the period of exile. However, it is known that many sacrificial words used in Canaan at the time of Moses, Ishtin, offered by fire, or peace offering, Axon wrote. Lee Archer wrote, it is hard to avoid the conclusion that these terms are already in current use in Palestine at the time of Moses and the conquest, and a whole line of reasons which make out the terminology of the Levitical cultus to be late and devoid of function. 3, the devotees of the document hypothesis also have argued that the presence of an Aramaic word in the biblical text indicate a post-exilic origin. Again, through the discovery of several Aramaeans in the Ugaritic literature, admittedly contemporary with Moses, has exploded this basis view. 4th, Westerling also concerned that the tabernacle of the wilderness has nothing to do with the ideal view of a temple. Thus, the narrative describing from historical fictions and the work of post-exilic priests are compilers. Archaeological studies reveal, however, the use of a portable tent in shrines in several ancient cultures. Such objects have existed in Egypt for more than 2,000 years before Christ, and recent studies have pointed to the fact that the Canaanite deity El may have been such portable shrine as a regular figure of its cult of the Amarna age. 5. For critics assert that most of the palms were composed after exile. Julius Weinstein declared that the question is not whether the palmster contained any post-exilic palms, but whether there were any pre-exilic palms. Close affinity of many palms with the style, forms, and expression in Ras Shamra Eckhart poetry from the ancient Ugaritic, dating back to the 14th century BC, demonstrate the antiquity in many of these odes. Unless one thing is distorted by unsound propositions of one's school, it is reasonable to think that the bulk of these pre-exilic palms, some even date before the Davidic and Semitic era. 6. Because of the theological basis of the particular prophecy, some scholars in relative recent times have contended that Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14 is not primarily a Messiah passage, but an Amor, and it should be merely real fact as a young woman. Professor William S. Beck wrote, on the Syrian coast of the Summer tablet, a tablet was an earth, which is almost 700 years older than Isaiah 7:14. It contains an account of the celebration of the two deities, Niki and Yahweh. Niki, before marriage take place, is announced that will be a girl to have a son. A beloved will be whole, and Alama will bear a son. And the words reformed to the both unmarried goddesses. This virgin gives birth to a child who was a child of God. Joseph J. Edwards said, There have been much inconsistencies, and lately in the famous passage of Isaiah 7:14 is not direct prophecy of a young virgin birth of Christ, and that the word alamama, which contains, should be translated as merely as a young woman. If in reply to this assertion, the evangelicals would simply rely upon the argument which they have employed by the scholars for the last century, his case will greatly reduce force. However, he may appeal to the uses made upon the remarkable text found in 1929 at the Ras Shamra. There discovers an employment word similar to that of Isaiah's. He discovered that in these texts the word is a use for an unmarried woman. He also discovered that a certain Aramaic incarnation bowls and the corresponding form in Hebrew to the word Bethlehem is the use of a married woman. Thus, he is reassurance that the traditional translation of virgin is preferred over young woman. So, basically, what this page is basically just saying, about the Ras Shamra, that a lot of the Hebrew religion was big, cut, and transformed by people that just cut it up and transform it. There's a whole other language called Ur, which, you don't hear too many Hebrews talk about, was discovered in 1929 and been around for a long time and validates many of the things that the Old Testament, the Bible, but it doesn't talk about a Moses or no stuff like that. If you really read the stuff, Baal or El is Yahweh. You know what I'm saying? And Yahweh had a wife. So the Israelites came in and just took it and chopped the religion up. You know what I'm saying? Some more. And cut parts off they didn't like and added parts they did. Hey, this is African history. Much love. Subscribe to the channel. I know it's kind of difficult for this. Hey, no attacks on people with personal religion history. Just spitting historical facts. Subscribe to the channel. Much love. Peace.